The Carolina Panthers came crashing back down to earth in a humbling loss at home against the Buffalo Bills. We'll break it all down right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube, where I am live inside Bank of America Stadium following the Carolina Panthers 40-9 loss at home against the Buffalo Bills. I'm live following every single game here on YouTube. If you ever miss a live episode, you can always check it out here later on YouTube and listen wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The Carolina Panthers 9, the Buffalo Bills 40, as the Panthers suffer a humbling loss at home. I put that in air quotes, as this was obviously and predictably a Buffalo Bills home game here in Uptown Charlotte. A tough loss for Carolina to suffer after a 3-game winning streak, their first since the beginning of the 2021 season, and to be in a spot where they had a chance to really show who they were. And we have now seen who the Carolina Panthers are not this season, and also who they are after playing all 4 of their games against the AFC East. Talk more about that later. The defense came back down to earth against the run today, as James Cook and the Bills ran all over them on this game and this afternoon, as I'm just jumbled up talking about this game to start off the show. But let's go ahead and let's start by talking about the offense and Andy Dalton, his performance today on Sunday, as clearly Andy did not give them a chance to win this game. And those aren't my words. Those are his words. He said that after the game during his press conference, that he did not give the team an opportunity to win the game. They were still in it early on, and he has the scramble where he's running past the line of scrimmage, trying to pick up some yardage, and you can just see that the athleticism that Andy Dalton once had when he was at TCU and early on in his career in Cincinnati, and hell, even last year, you saw more juice out of Andy Dalton's legs and arm than you did today. He was not able to get away from the ensuing rusher behind him, and you saw Gregory Rousseau force that fumble, and that then led to a field goal for Buffalo. Later on, Andy throws an interception at the line of scrimmage on what looked to be a screen play they were trying to set up. A.J. Epinesa reads it, gets the interception, takes that back to the Carolina 1-yard line. Now, we did ask Andy afterwards, because apparently Greg Olsen and Adam Amin on the Fox broadcast were bringing up the fact that Shaq Thompson, who's now in Buffalo, wearing the number 45 after wearing 54 for all those years in Carolina, Shaq apparently was yelling out whatever the Panthers were about to do. And that led Epinesa to really cheat on that play and be able to get that interception that led to then a 1-yard sneak for Josh Allen and for the Bills to go up even further in this game on Sunday. Andy said it was the right play call. Yes, he heard Shaq communicating, didn't feel like he needed to kill the play, and it led to an interception. So obviously it did not work out for them. Later on, he takes a bad sack right before the half where Carolina has an opportunity to kick a field goal. And they did actually get the field goal kick off from 32 yards, but Ryan Fitzgerald missed that kick. That was one of his 2 misses today. Missed an extra point later on in the game as well, but a bad sack in that situation. Andy's a veteran. He understands that he can't take a sack in that situation, and he had time to where he could have just thrown the ball out in the back of the end zone. There was going to be plenty of guys in the area, did not do that. And then we saw in the second half, he fumbled on the first play of the drive where Ike Ekwonu, who did not have a great day, we'll talk more about the offensive line here momentarily, he's getting blocked into Andy, and he's looking like he's going to throw the ball, loses control of it, fumbles, and that eventually turns into another Bills touchdown. So if you look at the game today, clearly Andy Dalton at this stage in his career is not the same guy that he used to be. He's not even the same guy that we saw week 3 of last year, and even in week 4 and some of the other games later on during his streak of being a starter for those 5 weeks at the early part of last season. Completely different player. And you could see it on his face, how much this one weighed on him. I even asked him at this stage of his career if it is tougher for him to play the way that he played today. And he did say that, yeah, it is. Because he doesn't know when his next opportunity is going to be. Potentially could be next week, as Bryce Young was close, but obviously not close enough to be active in this game and to play in this game. And Dave Canales did say they're hoping to get him out there on Wednesday. Now, the reports that came out last week, which were obviously correct, more so than the coach just saying, yeah, he's day-to-day trying to play gamesmanship, which will happen again this week leading up to the game against Green Bay. The report said that Bryce Young was going to miss 2 weeks. Hopefully, for Carolina's offensive sake, that's not the case. Now, for Andy, for him personally, would be nice for him to get another opportunity, but not the best thing for Carolina now sitting here at 4-4 with another big game on the road against what's supposedly a top-tier team in the NFL in the Green Bay Packers next weekend at Lambeau. So the athleticism that he once had, it's not there anymore. The 17 points that came off of Dalton's turnovers now have the Panthers opponents with 58 points off turnovers this season, which is the most in the NFL. And it honestly is a miracle. The Panthers sitting here at 500 through 8 weeks with that being a stat. They also have the worst points off turnover margin in the NFL at a -38. They are tied with the Jets, who finally got their first win of the season this afternoon in Cincinnati against the Bengals. So Andy Dalton was bad. We all understand that. Is he going to continue to be the backup? Dave Canales said emphatically, yes. Andy Dalton will be the backup for Carolina moving forward. And the hope is, of course, that the Panthers are not in a situation like they were again on this Sunday where they have to play Andy. And you see why he's a starting quarterback and why, again, Bryce Young is the best option for the Carolina Panthers moving forward. One thing I will say about the quarterback situation today, why, when down 40-9, did they not at least give Hendon Hooker an opportunity? And it's not like it's going to change the result of the game. I understand that this is not Pop Warner or Little League or Make-A-Wish and all of that, but damn, man, the guy's active on game day as a backup. He's an hour and a half down the road from his hometown of Greensboro. I assume that he would have had family come to the game today. Why not at least have one little nice moment in this ass whooping? Not my words. J.C. Horn called it an ass whooping. So did Derek Brown. Why not just have him go out there, get a couple of snaps, actually see some playing time in the NFL instead of having Andy out there and still running plays and the clock running out at the end? I didn't really understand that. Again, it's not a charity. It's not Make-A-Wish. It's not Little League. Not everybody has to play all of that, but come on, at some point in time, you just got to go ahead and move on when a guy played as badly as Andy did. And why subject him to an offensive line where he was sacked 7 times today, an offensive line that's falling apart? Why have him go back out there and continue to take hits? Because if Bryce isn't going to miss next week, you need Andy Dalton to be ready. Because having Andy gone down, you wouldn't want to have Hendon Hooker. Maybe you as a fan would, but I know this team doesn't want Hendon Hooker out there starting in Lambeau, making his first career start in the NFL. And I don't know if they want Mike White starting out there next week either, when he would have been here for 10 days by that point in time when toe meets leather up there in Green Bay. So yeah, Andy was brutal. He understands it. I understand it. We all understand it. He's got to be much better if he gets an opportunity again. Hopefully for Carolina, Bryce Young's back next week to play against the Packers. Now, the running back rotation, it continued today. I was having a conversation before heading down on the elevator with Jonathan Stewart briefly, asked him, what do you think about it? And he said to me, it's too intentional. And by too intentional, it's Series 1, Chuba Hubbard. Series 2, Rico Dowdle. Series 3, Chuba Hubbard. Series 4, Rico Dowdle. Series 5, Chuba Hubbard. Series 6, Rico Dowdle. So on and so forth. There's just no rhythm. There's no flow to it. And I'm fine overall with them doing the running back rotation to a certain extent. But when you get into the game, you got to go with the guy who is clearly playing better that day. And last week it was Rico Dowdle. And again today, it was Rico Dowdle in this game. He's just overall been the better back for Carolina this season. And I know that a lot of people do not want to see Chuba out there at this point in time. Now, Chuba did have that garbage time touchdown. Congratulations to him and all of that. But they're going to play Chuba. And Dave was even asked about it after the game, just how he felt about the rotation. He said that he's fine with them rotating. He liked the plan. They just need to execute. Well, I know one of your backs certainly is executing at this point in time at a pretty quality level, and that back is Rico Dowdle. The other back, Chuba Hubbard, has not been there to that point this season. Looking at the stats, Rico had 8 carries, 54 yards, 6.8 yards per carry. Pretty damn good. Chuba Hubbard, 12 carries, 34 yards, 2.8 yards per carry. And again, that garbage time 3-yard touchdown. I don't believe at this stage of the season, Chuba Hubbard should be getting more carries than Rico Dowdle. I don't have a problem with Chuba Hubbard getting carries to start off the game. I don't have a problem with Chuba Hubbard getting more carries if he ends up having better stats than Chuba or than Rico and clearly looks like the better back on an afternoon. It's only been 2 weeks. Dave Canales let everyone know last week that it was Chuba's first game back, and he's letting us know right now he's fine with the plan. Maybe he goes back and reviews the film and feels like moving forward they need to do something different. I still feel like going next week, it's cool if they want to do the rotation to start off the game, but as you get into the game flow and you see how each back is performing, you got to start sticking with one guy. And you look at one of the drives where Rico had the 24-yard rush, got that first down. He came out of the game because he was tired. That's how it should go. If you have someone playing well, they need a break, then you bring in Chuba and you let him try to finish off that drive. And then if Rico's ready to go back in, put him back in. It doesn't need to be, you get this drive no matter what. That just is kind of nonsensical to me at this stage of the way things are playing out. Again, it's been 2 games of this rotation going on. We'll see how it evolves. But yes, very clearly to everyone who's watching it, Rico Dowdle has been the better back, and there needs to be an adjustment to how they're going to go about it. Chuba Hubbard's going to get carries, y'all. You're going to have to accept that. He's going to get carries. Just should he be getting amount of carries like 12 he got today? Right now, no. When you're going to have 20 carries between your 2 starting backs, your 2 top backs, 12 of them, you're going to do that split. That's got to go to Rico, not to Chuba Hubbard, based off of what we've seen over the last month of the season here in Carolina. So we'll see how that plays out moving forward. Another thing that I think is actually probably the chief concern for the Panthers offense at this point in time is the offensive line injuries that have continued to pile up. We saw Cade Mays go down with an ankle injury in this game. He was listed as doubtful, spoke to him in the locker room. And, I mean, all those guys are pretty beat up at this point in time emotionally because they lost Brady Christensen probably for the year with a ruptured Achilles. We'll talk more about that here momentarily. But Cade Mays, he got an ankle injury. He was heading in to get an MRI afterwards. So we'll get the results of that possibly on Monday if Dave wants to reveal that. Now, if it's serious, he probably will. If it's not that serious, then he'll just tell us. I'll give you the information on Wednesday, which is my expectation. And Cade was out here throughout the game on the stationary bike, just pedaling pretty slowly. So I don't know where that's at. He got rolled up on, apparently. I think he said on the first drive of the game. And then after that, he tried to keep playing and he couldn't play. So Austin Corbett came in at center for the rest of that game. Taylor Moton went out with a knee injury. I guess this happened at halftime where he changed clothes. I did not notice on the opening drive of the second half for Carolina that he was not out there. He's replaced by Yosh Nijman at right tackle. Dave Canales said after the game they're going to evaluate Taylor, see what his knee's at moving forward. So that's concerning, of course. Brady Christensen, who really didn't have a good day. He gave up a sack early in that game. He's just whiffed on a block going up against Ed Oliver, who actually suffered an injury, maybe done for Buffalo long-term as well. He later on got beat by Jordan Phillips. That was the second sack that he allowed on the day. And then in the fourth quarter, he was carted off with what they called an ankle injury. But we were later told by Dave Canales in the press conference that it is an Achilles injury. And then when he was asked if he believes it's a ruptured Achilles, he does think that that is the case. Of course, we'll get more news and confirmation on that, possibly via sources tonight on Sunday, but certainly on Monday afternoon when Dave meets with the media again. And Brady was replaced by Jake Kurhan. No idea who that is. That's where they're at right at this point in time. And even Ike Ekwonu, who was not injured in this game, did not have a great day. Got beat by Joey Bosa, got pushed back into Andy on that second fumble that Andy had in the second half of the game today. And you look just at the offensive line and where they're at. The only healthy offensive lineman right now are Ike Ekwonu at left tackle, Damian Lewis at left guard, Austin Corbett at center, and Yosh Nijman at right tackle. Those are the only healthy out of the 9 guys you returned from last year. Robert Hunt, he's on IR. Apparently, he potentially could have his practice window open up after the bye week. That's what Dave Canales told us earlier this week. Chandler Zavala's on IR with a knee injury. I don't know what the severity of that is. I'm going to try to ask about that tomorrow. Taylor Moton, we'll find out more maybe tomorrow. Cade Mays having an MRI didn't look to be that significant, so we'll find out more about that as well, because Bryce, he was able to walk off, didn't seem to be that big of a deal, and of course he didn't play today, and there's going to be questions about whether he plays next week up at Green Bay as well. So we'll find out more about Cade and then Brady appears to be done for the season with what they believe is a ruptured Achilles for him. So 5 out of the 9 guys you brought back are banged up, and 3 of them certainly significant injuries that they're dealing with. And that's not good, man. Not good, because the Panthers' strength on the offensive line was the fact that they had depth. The Panthers' strength, maybe even on the roster, was the fact that they had depth on the offensive line. And that's why they're even sitting here at 4-4. If they didn't have depth and they had the kind of injuries that they've had so far, this would be a train wreck of a season, I believe, at this point in time. Fortunately, they're not there, but maybe they're starting to get there, as they are very thin there. And I asked Austin Corbius about the emotions in that position group room, seeing so many guys go down. He said they're a tight-knit group, and it's tough. And it's got to be next man up, but I don't know how many next man up you have, because when you're getting Jake Kurhan out there and it's week 8 against Buffalo, and you got 2 guys on IR, another guy going IR for sure, and then 2 more guys who we don't know what their status is going to be, this is not great. Not great for the Panthers offensive line and for the Panthers offense overall. So we'll find out more about that on Monday, but obviously not a great day for the offense. Andy Dalton was just terrible in this game, and he knows that the running back rotation, a little confounding. They're going to continue to do it, apparently, but Rico's been the better back. You got to find a way to get him more touches, and then you got to limit what Chuba's getting at this point in time. Not saying not to play Chuba, because they're going to do it, but Rico should really be more the focal point. And if you're going to do the rotation, ride the hot hand. They're not doing that at this point in time. And yeah, the offensive line injuries are concerning for Carolina, moving past his 40-9 loss at home against the Buffalo Bills. The defense came in and looked like the defense we saw back in week 1 and what we saw at the end of the last 6 weeks of last season, where they could not stop the run. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, Georgia, and, of course, here in North Carolina. I've been using Prize Picks during football Sundays and NBA tip-off. It keeps every game exciting. The new stacks feature is a game changer. You can pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same game. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors, all about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNFL so they know we sent you. Rougiette, stop making excuses and start making moves. Back here on Locked on Panthers, Carolina Panthers lose at home 40-9 against the Buffalo Bills. A humbling loss. That's what Derek Brown called it in the locker room. He also, I heard him say it was an ass whooping. And J.C. Horn also admitted they got their ass whooped. Now, the prevailing sentiment, though, is it's just one game. It's the NFL. It's a week-to-week league. It happens. Remember, Ron Rivera said that one time after they got their tails kicked against Pittsburgh on that Thursday night, it happens. So certainly happened today for Carolina, and it's disappointing because the manner in which it happened really has you wondering, is the defense that much improved? Has the last couple of weeks just been an anomaly, or really is it just one game? I don't know, but the Panthers' run defense returned to the Panthers' run defense of old, as the Bills, they entered today 6th in the NFL in rushing yards heading into week 8. They were 4th in yards per rush, 2nd in EPA per rush, and 3rd in rushing success rate Both those stats coming from True Media. Looking at the Panthers, who actually had been pretty good against the run. They were 9th in rushing yards allowed, 13th in yards per rush allowed, 15th in defensive total rush EPA, and then second in the NFL in defensive rushing success rate. That did not carry over today against what I felt like. And we talked about this on Friday and even with Joe Marino of Locked On Bills during the crossover Thursday episode about how this was going to be a challenge for Carolina. We were really going to find out how good this run defense is. The Jets rushing attack, not great. Breece Hall, good player. Their offensive line's a train wreck, so didn't really take too much out of last week, even though they gave up only 81 yards, and 38 of those are from Breece Hall. So they took care of business last week against the Jets rushing attack. You look at the week prior to that, against Dallas, they do have a solid running attack. I believe they went into that game number 1 in the NFL in total rush EPA, and they ran for 31 yards in that game. The week prior to that against Miami, 19 yards. So the Dolphins, the Cowboys, and the Jets, 131 yards combined. Then in the first half today to allow James Cook 153 rushing yards total, which, by the way, I was looking at the broadcast on Fox, apparently the most by any Bills player in any half since 1992. I was born in 93. So the most in my lifetime that has happened with a Bills rusher period in any half. So you gave up more rushing yards in the first half than you had given up combined the last 3 weeks. So that is concerning that they took that big of a step back. Overall, they gave up 245 yards rushing on 35 carries. So that's 7 yards per rush, 4 rushing touchdowns on the ground. Their inability to stop the run against what truly is a really good rushing attack. And it's not like Josh Allen did anything. He had 3 carries and 7 yards. It was all James Cook. One guy, 19 carries, 216 yards, 11.4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. One of them where, Nick Scott just missed a tackle, man. And we've seen it happen before. I've asked him about what he thinks about defensively, communication, leverage, effort. I don't think communication was off. I don't think the effort was off. The leverage was certainly off on that play, as that then led to a touchdown run for James Cook. They just kept getting beat constantly. There was toss plays. Haven't seen a ton of that. Now, I did talk to Jay Stu about this. He did say that New England did a lot of things trying to get to the outside and to put those outside linebackers into conflict. And we did see after that game where DJ Johnson struggled, he didn't cut. Nick Scorton didn't want to talk after the game. He'll have to talk to us on Monday, so not really a big deal, but he certainly was not in the mood. Prince Umamielen, he wasn't wanting to talk either. So those guys all had tough days. I don't know what the PFF grades are, but you can't say anybody played well defensively. Teron Merrick really wasn't that great for them against the run either. Derek Brown, they ran away from him. And he said it I have to go back and look at the tape, but as far as my perspective, I was on the backs of a lot of things. So they were not going to allow him to be a game wrecker and to impact their rushing attack. And I'm curious now if other teams who are capable will look at what Buffalo did today and try to implement the same thing, and if Carolina can adjust, because they have been good against the run. They were excellent against it, really, the last 3 weeks. And then today, against a really capable rushing attack, we saw them go right back to what they had been. Now, Green Bay statistically hasn't been that great against the run, or hasn't been that great running the ball, rather. I don't think New Orleans is that great. Atlanta on the road. Now they got their ass kicked by Miami today. That will be another test for Carolina. But this is one that it's tough to swallow when the defense plays as well as they did against the run. And then today you gave up all this. Like, Josh Allen didn't beat you. He had some pretty dumb plays, had that one sack where he lost 15 yards, and they ended up making a field goal after Carolina had an encroachment penalty. But yeah, he took some bad sacks. I think he only took 2 today, but still doing some kind of some of the things you've seen him get in trouble for throughout his career. So he didn't do anything. It was all James Cook. It was really that simple. You got beat by one player, and one of your old issues reared its ugly head up again defensively as they couldn't stop the run. Trevin Wallace did go out with an injury in this game. They said it was a concussion. Now, if you watched it on television, very clearly he held his right shoulder, and they later on said that it was a stinger. And I asked Dave to clarify, was it his right shoulder? And it was. So we'll get more evaluation there as far as what that means for him. He's been playing fairly well the last couple of weeks since he's had the green dot, the helmet comm here in his helmet recently, and been the guy calling out all the communication, all the signals for the defense. But defensively, terrible against the run. And passing wise, they only gave 165 yards through the air and 1 touchdown. So, yeah. not really anything to look at and be like, oh, well, damn. And I think that one touchdown actually was the Khalil Shakir. So that was the one where actually Nick Scott missed a tackle on that, not on the run, that the rushing touchdown for James Cook. So, yeah, defense played bad. That's more of the story. So where do they go from here? We know who the Panthers aren't, and we know who they are. And the AFC East, we have to thank for all of that. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, back here on Locked On Panthers, I do want to say, speaking of injuries, Derek Brown injured his knee at the end of the game. He said his foot got stuck in the turf, but he was fine. He was ruled as questionable to return. He was standing up, didn't go to the injury tent. He spoke to the media afterwards, so he's good to go. So nothing serious there. And, field turf yet again, getting guys' feet sunk. That would have been a real problem had that been more serious. So I don't know, maybe put grass on the field instead of the field turf that the players hate to have and leads to injuries like the one that Derek Brown could have sustained. Either way, though, looking at Carolina, they're 4-4. They're 500 through 8 weeks at the end of October. I would hope that you would all take that, considering how things looked week one, how things looked at halftime against Arizona, how things looked after the game against New England. They won 3 of their last 4. I'll take that certainly, because you're 8 weeks into the season and you're still alive for whatever the goal is this year. Like, I don't think they're a playoff team, but you can't rule it out at this point in time because you are sitting here at 500. Now the schedule, as we know, after the first 7 weeks of the season was going to get much tougher. And we saw that today against Buffalo. They have Green Bay next week. They still have a trip to San Francisco. The Rams come to town. They play Seattle here. They play Tampa at home and on the road. It's not going to get easier for Carolina. We all understand that. So that is what makes today alarming, in my opinion, that when they were measured up to one of the best teams in the NFL, they played their worst game of the season, in my opinion. They were awful. And Buffalo's good. I get that. But to have beaten Atlanta the way you did, and for Atlanta to have beaten Buffalo and had a ton of success running the ball, and then you never getting in a rhythm when it comes to running, and also really not staying dedicated to running the ball, which has been a common occurrence here in Carolina over the last year and a half as Dave Canales has been the head coach and play caller. You thought that you would have had a better chance. And I felt like they had a real chance to win this game. I was never focused on who the quarterback was going to be. Maybe I got that wrong because Andy made some terrible decisions in this game. But the offensive line didn't hold up either. Like, they got to be better moving forward, which is going to be a lot to ask considering the amount of injuries they have on that unit. So they do at least have an excuse where Andy, I don't know what his excuse is other than he's old, he's not as good as he once was, and all of that. But damn, got to be able to execute. I thought they had a chance because of the run game, and we didn't see it. And I guess I should have put this in my 3 keys of victory to stop the run, because I certainly must have overlooked, and I guess I did overlook the way that Buffalo could have won this game by just running the ball and not even leaning on Josh Allen at all in this game and letting it just be James Cook and their defense go out there and take care of Carolina. And that's what they did. So you hope this is not going to be a harbinger for things to come, because you look at the games that they played so far this season. They have been down by 3 scores, by the way, in 5 out of their 8 games, and somehow are sitting here at 4-4, at 500. So round of applause that they've been able to overcome that hellacious stat and be in this position through 8 weeks of the season so far. But when you look at the better teams they played so far this year, like Buffalo, they got destroyed. Like New England, they got destroyed. Dallas is on the same tier, in my opinion, as Carolina. Miami's below them. So are the Jets. Arizona thinks the same tier as Carolina, but they've had the Kyler Murray injury, and they've not really been great since that game that they won against Carolina, where the Panthers almost made the comeback and almost won that game. Jacksonville, I feel like it's the same tier. They're not really that good. But we know clearly like where Carolina sits, I feel like, in the pecking order of the NFL. They're not a part of the cellar, which is the Jets and the Dolphins. But they're very clearly not a part of the true contenders, which is Buffalo and New England, which I think going into this game, you probably would have said like, well, duh, they're not at the same level as Buffalo and as New England, 2 teams in the AFC East who have beat them by 29 and 31 points. That's 60 points combined against top 2 teams in the AFC East, while you were able to beat the 2 worst teams in the AFC East by 1 score. So that gives you a pretty good indication of who Carolina is. And the AFC East has exposed who the Panthers are at this point in time. They're not terrible because they beat the terrible teams, but they're also not good because they've gotten their doors blown off by the actual good teams in the AFC East. So what does that mean next week in Green Bay? And when they play LA, who I think is going to win the Super Bowl this year, and when they play San Francisco, Tampa twice, and Seattle. Better beat New Orleans, I would think, at this point in time, if you want to improve upon the record from last year. Because early returns against the better teams in the NFL, they're pretty far off at this point in time. They can beat Atlanta. They already did it. So that could be potentially 7 wins right there. How do they find an 8th against some of these other teams that I think very clearly are a better team? And how does Carolina bounce back from this? They say it's only 1 game. They're going to move on from it. But it was a reality check, I think, for this organization and for the fans to where the Panthers sit at this point in time, 8 weeks into the season, as they get blown out at home before a partisan Bills crowd, 40-9 here in Uptown Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium. Disappointing, but they'll move on and a chance to really rebound in a big way next week at Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe or follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, where right now, go ahead, hit me up in my DMs or at me with whatever questions you have for the weekly Wednesday mailbag coming up this week on Wednesday. Do that every single week throughout the regular season here on the show. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I'll talk to you all on Tuesday as we'll go back over the good, the bad, and the ugly from this game and get some injury updates on the Panthers offensive line from Dave Canales from his Monday press conference here on Locked On Panthers.